Joining me now from Miami is Republican Senator Marco Rubio of Florida. Senator Rubio, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Thank you.
Before I get to the primary subject I want to talk to you about with Saudi Arabia, I want to start with Hurricane Michael's impact, particularly to the eastern part of the Panhandle. It does seem as if this was a pretty devastating hit to that part. A lot of people having flashbacks, myself included, of what happened to Homestead. How concerned are you that Panama City, Mexico Beach will never get rebuilt the way they would like to be rebuilt?
Well, you use the exact analogy I've used, and that is Andrew. I think you and I both lived down here during that period of time, and that's the closest thing that I can remember in terms of Panama Beach and what it looked like, Panama City, I'm sorry, what it looked like when I saw it. I didn't get to Mexico Beach. I was at the EOC down there, the Emergency Operations Center. The drone had just come back, so we had the fresh images, and it basically is a total wipeout, and it's hard to imagine it ever being able to recapture the exact identity it once had. It'll be rebuilt. It'll all be rebuilt at some point, but it's going to take a long time. In terms of electricity in Panama City, that whole grid has to be rebuilt. It's not restoration. But I want to tell you what I'm really most concerned about, and I'm concerned about all of it. There are a lot of island areas, some of these poor rural counties to the north of there. These counties took a devastating hit, and we are talking about poorer people. Many of them are older. Miles from each other, isolated in many cases from roads, including some dirt roads that are cut off right now. We haven't been able to reach those people in a number of days, and I know they're doing the best they can to get to them, but I'm really very concerned.
Is there more of the Is there more of the federal government? Is there more resources you want from the feds here? Is there some military support that's necessary here in order to speed up the ability to get to some of these communities?
Maybe, and it's available. What people forget here, and I always want to remind them, is when it comes to a hurricane, the state government is in the lead. It is the state government who's in charge of the response. The federal government stands in support. The state government tells the federal government, we need this and we need that. So far, I have not heard of anything the state government has asked for that the federal government has not stepped forward to provide. Whether there needs to be more, that's something that we'll see in the days to come. But I know the federal government, including the Department of Defense, is standing ready to offer even more if the state says it needs it.
I know that political norms get erased all the time now, but one of the norms got erased in Florida, which was in the middle of a hurricane coming and hitting the shores, there was always this ceasefire on television. No political negative ads. That didn't happen this time. You had the Republican Party running negative ads against Andrew Gillum. You had some super PACs running negative ads against both Rick Scott and Bill Nelson. Is this just par for the course, or would you like to see this sort of put back into place? Should the candidates be more steadfast in taking politics out of hurricanes?
Yeah, look, I don't think anything's ever going to be the way it once was, especially at the eve of the election. We're 4 weeks away. My fundamental question is whether politics is standing in the way of dealing with a hurricane. That would be the one thing I'd have a real problem with. And I don't think television ads, whether they're right or wrong from a moral perspective, I don't think television ads keep doing their job. For example, you saw the mayor of Tallahassee went back to Tallahassee, and the governor's doing his job there. And Bill Nelson, my colleague, was focused on the hurricane as well. Ron DeSantis is not in office right now as an elected official, but his running mate, Jeanette Nunez, is, and she was at the EOC and has been doing her job as Speaker pro tempore of the state, the #2 in the Florida House. Right. So I think that's the thing I would look at. As far as norms are concerned, politics is different today than it used to be, and I don't think it's going to go back in many instances.
All right, I want to move to the disturbing story of the missing journalist, Jamal Khashoggi, Washington Post columnist. I know you've been very focused on this. First of all, as a member of the Intelligence Committee, do you know if he's dead or alive?
I do not. I don't think anyone does. I think the Turks have a very strong opinion and claim that there's evidence that they're sharing with U.S. intelligence officials. I have not seen that yet. Suffice it to say, it's been a long time now since this happened. We know the last place he went into was a Saudi consulate. There was no video of him exiting. If there was such video, I would imagine the Saudis would have produced it by now. And I'm not prepared to pass judgment on something I don't know for 100% certainty, but I can tell you he walked into that consulate and we had never seen him come out, and something happened. And if he's not alive, then it is the Saudis who would know what happened. And it's a... Go ahead.
Yeah, do you know if we got intelligence beforehand that his life may be in danger?
Well, I'm not going to discuss that on television. Suffice it to say that I certainly think that if in fact this the Saudis are responsible for this, and we're going to learn that. I truly believe we'll know the answer to that. It's not something that people would look at and be surprised by. This is clearly someone that they were unhappy and uncomfortable with. What I do think is shocking is if, in fact, he was lured into a diplomatic facility, murdered, his body chopped up, and that they sent a group of people down there to carry this out. That would be an outrage. And there would be a swift response, certainly from Congress.
If U.S. intelligence knew in advance that he was in trouble, do you think we had a duty to warn him?
Well, I think that's our policy, is if we know that someone is facing a specific threat, that we would let them know that. I think in this particular case, I'm not sure that he was not aware of it. For example, I'm not sure that he was ever going to get on a plane and fly back to Riyadh or Saudi Arabia, and there's been open press reports that there were efforts to get him to come back, and he was not ever going to do that. What I don't think anyone knew, and what I have never seen any evidence of, is that somehow walking into a diplomatic facility in a third country would endanger his life. And that's the most shocking part. If this had happened in Saudi Arabia, it would still be outrageous, but that's different from saying in a third country, not Saudi Arabia, in a diplomatic facility, you're going to walk in and then they're going to do that to ice you. I mean, that would be something we've never seen before, certainly from a country that's an ally.
Well, let's talk about potential punishments here. The president said one thing is off the table. He would not cancel any arms sale to Saudi Arabia, saying that that would hurt America more than it hurts Saudi Arabia. If that is the case, how does that not come across as us, as the United States, putting a price on our human rights policy?
Well, I would have phrased it very differently. Arms sales to Saudi Arabia are important, not because of money, but because he's right when he says they'll buy it from somebody else. And when they buy it from us, they need replacement parts, they need training, they need the sort of things that give us leverage over them. So there's advantages to arms sales that have nothing to do with money. That said, okay, our moral credibility, our ability to call Putin a murderer because he is, our ability to call Assad a murderer because he is, our ability to confront Maduro in Venezuela or any of these other human rights atrocities like what we see in China, all of that is undermined and compromised if we somehow decide that because an ally who's important did that, we're not going to call it out. So I will just say this to you with full confidence. If this is proven to be true, be a response from Congress, it's going to be nearly unanimous, it's going to be swift, and it's going to go pretty far. And that could include arms sales, but it could include a bunch of other things as well.
But the president doesn't look like he's ready to commit as far as you just went.
Well, at some point, like I said, I think when all the evidence is in, we'll see. I saw an interview after the fact, after he said those things about the arms sales, where he said if in fact this proves to be true, there will be a lot of punishment for it. It actually impacted the stock market's view of Saudi Arabia. So ultimately, I do believe that the White House, if this has happened and it can be proven, will do something significant about it. I believe they'll do it. I know Congress will do it.
All right, Senator Marco Rubio, Republican from Florida. As always, sir, thanks for coming on and sharing your views.
Thank you.
You got it.